Have you ever felt like you're constantly fighting against life? Like no matter how hard you try, things just don't go the way you expect? Maybe you've been chasing goals, fixing problems, or trying to control every detail, but still end up feeling exhausted and empty. It's almost like the harder you push, the further peace and happiness slip away. I know that feeling because I've been there too. There was a time in my life when I thought being in control was the answer. I believed if I planned enough, worked enough, and tried hard enough, everything would fall into place. But instead, I found myself more stressed, anxious, and disconnected from the things that truly matter. It felt like I was always running, but never arriving. Then something changed. I discovered a simple practice that turned everything around. It wasn't complicated. It didn't require hours of meditation or reading endless self-help books. It was about letting go, about learning how to stop forcing life and start allowing it to flow. And when I finally did, everything began to shift. Suddenly, I felt lighter. Opportunities showed up without me chasing them. Relationships became deeper and more meaningful. And for the first time, I experienced what it truly meant to be free. In this video, I'm going to share this life-changing practice with you. It's something you can start using today, no matter where you are or what you're going through. By the end, you'll see how letting life be can transform your world forever. I'm Dante. Welcome to another episode of Inner Guided. Letting go sounds simple, but for most of us, it feels almost impossible. We're wired to hold on to people, plans, expectations, and even our fears. We convince ourselves that if we don't stay in control, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, holding on too tightly often causes more pain than peace. I remember a time when I was obsessed with making everything in my life perfect. My career, my relationships, even how I spent my free time. Everything had to fit into this perfect picture I had in my head. But instead of feeling accomplished, I felt drained. It was like carrying a heavy suitcase everywhere I went, afraid to put it down because I thought I needed everything inside it. One day, after a particularly stressful week, I decided to take a walk in the park. It was supposed to clear my head, but instead, I found myself mentally replaying conversations, making to-do lists, and stressing over things I couldn't change. Then I saw this couple sitting on a bench, just laughing and feeding the birds. They weren't in a rush. They weren't checking their phones. They were just there. For some reason, that moment hit me hard. It made me realize how much I was missing by always living in my head, trying to control things that didn't need controlling. That day, I decided to loosen my grip just a little. I told myself I'd let go of one worry, just for that afternoon. And what happened? Nothing fell apart. In fact, I felt lighter, like I could finally breathe. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you stop caring about your goals or dreams. It means you stop forcing things to happen and start trusting that life knows what it's doing. Think about it. Some of the best moments in life happen when we least expect them. A conversation with a stranger, a last-minute trip, or even a sudden change that feels scary at first but ends up being exactly what we needed. When you let go, you create space for peace, for joy, and for opportunities that you couldn't see when you were too busy trying to control every outcome. It's like opening your hands instead of keeping them clenched. What's meant for you can finally find its way to you, and what's not meant for you can gently fall away. This isn't about becoming passive. It's about becoming open. And the more open you are, the more life can surprise you in the best ways. Trusting life isn't easy, especially when things feel uncertain or out of control. Most of us have been taught to always have a plan, to stay prepared, and to push through challenges no matter what. But what if the real magic happens when we stop trying to force everything and start trusting that life has its own timing? I'll never forget the time I lost a business deal I had worked so hard to secure. At first, I was crushed. I kept replaying what went wrong, wondering if I should have done something differently. But after days of frustration, I decided to let it go. I told myself, maybe this wasn't meant for me. Maybe there's something better coming. And there was. Just 2 weeks later, a completely unexpected opportunity showed up, one I hadn't planned for and never saw coming. It turned out to be even bigger and more rewarding than the first deal I was chasing. Looking back, I realized that if I had stayed stuck in disappointment, I might have missed it altogether. That's the beauty of trusting life. When we stop resisting and start allowing, we create room for the unexpected. And often, what life brings us is far better than what we thought we wanted. Think about it. Nature doesn't resist. Rivers don't fight to flow. They move naturally, finding their way around obstacles without forcing anything. Trees don't cling to their leaves in the fall. They let them go, trusting that new growth will come in the spring. When we align with that same rhythm, things start to shift. This doesn't mean life won't have challenges. It just means we learn to stop seeing them as problems and start viewing them as part of the journey. Sometimes what feels like a setback is really just life redirecting us to something better. I once met someone who shared a powerful story about losing their job. At the time, it felt like their entire world had fallen apart. But with no job holding them back, they finally pursued their passion for art. Within a year, they had built a thriving business selling paintings. What seemed like a disaster at first ended up being the push they needed to follow their dream. Trusting life doesn't mean we sit back and do nothing. It means we take steps, but we also leave room for surprises. We learn to follow the signs, even when the path isn't clear. Sometimes it's a phone call that comes at just the right time, or a chance meeting that opens a new door. These moments aren't coincidences. They're reminders that life is always working with us, not against us. When you let go of the need to control every detail, you start to notice these gifts. You realize that life isn't something you have to fight, it's something you can flow with. And in that flow, you find freedom, peace, and more opportunities than you ever imagined. It's one thing to understand the idea of letting go, but actually doing it, that's where most people get stuck. Letting go isn't about flipping a switch. It's about taking small, intentional steps that help you loosen your grip and trust the process. And the best part, you don't have to wait for the perfect moment to start. You can begin right now. One of the easiest ways to practice letting go is to start noticing when you're holding on too tightly. Pay attention to those moments when your body feels tense, when your shoulders are tight, your jaw is clenched, or your mind is racing. That's usually a sign you're trying to control something that might be out of your hands. When you notice it, pause. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself that it's okay not to have all the answers. Just that pause alone can shift your energy. I remember struggling with this when I first started my journey. I used to plan every hour of my day because I felt like I needed structure to stay productive. But the truth? It left no space for spontaneity or rest. So I made a deal with myself. I'd leave 1 hour each day completely unplanned. At first, it felt uncomfortable, like I was wasting time. But then something amazing happened. That hour became the most peaceful part of my day. Sometimes I'd go for a walk. Sometimes I'd sit and read. And other times I'd just do nothing. It taught me that not everything needs to be scheduled. Another powerful step is learning to reframe your thoughts. Instead of asking, "What if this goes wrong?" Try asking, "What if this goes right?" That small shift in perspective can turn fear into excitement. And when you approach life with curiosity instead of worry, you stop resisting what's in front of you and start embracing it. I also recommend finding ways to connect with the present moment, whether it's through meditation, journaling, or simply sitting quietly with your morning tea. Giving yourself permission to slow down can make a huge difference. It's in those quiet moments that you start to hear your own intuition, and that voice often knows the answers you've been searching for. And here's something that might surprise you. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring about outcomes. It just means you stop obsessing over them. Imagine planting a seed. You water it, make sure it gets sunlight, and then you let it grow. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's sprouting. You trust the process. The same goes for your dreams and goals. Take action, but then step back and allow things to unfold naturally. One of my favorite practices is something I call letting go rituals. Whenever I'm feeling stuck, I write down what's bothering me, whether it's a fear, a regret, or an expectation. Then I either tear up the paper or burn it safely. It's symbolic, but it works. It helps me release what's weighing me down and reminds me to trust the bigger picture. Life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to be experienced. And when you start letting go of the need to manage every detail, you make space for joy, freedom, and unexpected blessings. Letting life be doesn't mean giving up. It means learning to trust. It's about releasing the need to control everything and opening yourself to the surprises and gifts that life has in store. When you let go, you're not losing power, you're gaining freedom. Freedom to breathe, to grow, and to experience the beauty of the present moment. The truth is, life has a way of working out, even when we can't see the path ahead. And the more we practice letting go, the more we discover that we don't have to force things to make them happen. We just have to create space, take small steps, and allow life to flow naturally. So, if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or tired of chasing control, remember this: it's okay to pause, it's okay to trust, and it's okay to believe that life is unfolding exactly as it should. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this video spoke to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more conversations like this.